Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to have you here with us in beautiful Venice. Maybe you could begin with a brief introduction and tell us what can people expect when they watch The Featherweight.
Sure. I'm Robert Kolodny. I'm the director of the Featherweight. We're excited to be here in Venice.
I am James Madio. I play the title character Willie Pep in the movie The Featherweight, and I'm also delighted to be in cinema in paradise, as I've been saying to everybody I come across.
And if someone doesn't know anything about The Featherweight, what can they expect when they watch the film?
The Featherweight is a 1960s period piece about former world featherweight champion boxer Willie Pep, based on a true story. And the film follows Willie through a difficult time in his career after retiring and trying to make a comeback to the ring. Married to a woman half his age, he's got a drug-addicted son. He lives with his Italian immigrant parents, working dead-end jobs. And at this kind of crux moment in his life, a documentary camera crew comes and starts to do a piece on him, begins to sort of invade his life.
Absolutely fascinating film, so much to unpick, but I'm particularly curious as well about this whole backstory. I mean, when people say, you're born to play a role, it felt like this was something that had followed you, I think, your whole career since you were a young actor, because of your resemblance, is that right?
I guess there is an uncanny resemblance, not only face-wise, but I guess the physicality and the Italian-American and East Coast, and just how we both were raised and values and all of that as well. Yeah, I mean, it stems from my father saying, hey, I think you should look into this man's story. And we did. Me and the writer, Steve Loft, just started developing a few years back. And now we're here. Yeah, I've always had a connection with Willie because I think his journey and what he's been through, the ups and downs in his life, the triumphs and the rejections. I've been doing this for a long time, acting, and I think they ran parallel. Obviously, he's a man in the ring getting punched in the face, and I'm not. I act like I get punched in the face, but I think they do run parallel, and I have a lot of sympathy and heart for what Willie has gone through in his journey. And it's bittersweet. Obviously, I wish he was alive today so we can see his name in lights and his movie. His biographical movie in cinematic history, I think would have been really special. But his family can enjoy that now.
And it kind of went through, I think, quite a lot of iterations, like different directors attached. At some point, maybe it was just going to be more of a kind of, straightforward biopic. But it's kind of, morphed into the film we see today. So maybe we can say a bit about how you kind of came on board and this idea of kind of having the documentary setting.
Yeah. The script was written by Steve Loft, who's a brilliant writer, and he and Jimmy had been developing it for quite some time. This idea of having a nonfiction conceit to the film came about in an effort to sort of pare down the scope of Willie's career. So that got us to the 1960s and the comeback. Steve James, who directed Hoop Dreams, came aboard and helped with the script a bit. And he passed the project along to Robert Greene, who's a brilliant documentary director. He made Procession and Bisbee 17. And I had shot the past couple films of Robert's, and so he passed the script to me. I've always had the aspiration to make fiction films. This is my debut film. And I connected with the script immediately. I thought Willie was such a fascinating, layered, interesting character. And I, at that time, was working on a documentary about boxing. So I was used to the world and kind of the language of boxing. And so to marry the boxing thing, the documentary thing, and the, aspiration to make a drama, it all just felt perfect. So that's how I landed in the soup.
And of course, there's a great tradition of sort of the boxing film as a genre. But what I'm really interested in is how you've kind of, co-opted some of the sort of trappings of that and the tropes of that, but you're also slightly subverting those partly because of the documentary style, but also because you're showing kind of, this, the behind the scenes, if you like, of the sort of reality of life when you're not kind of in this heroic kind of position. So maybe you can talk a bit about, maybe other boxing films that you were using as touch points, but also kind of raining against those as well in a way.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't even really think of the movie as a boxing film. I think it's just it's a family drama, a biographical portrait that happens to have boxing in it. But, the idea of the boxing film exists in the cultural consciousness. When you think about a boxing film, you immediately get images of, Sylvester Stallone or Creed now, and they're all like underdog stories of people like rising to the occasion, glory, and so from the start, we wanted to subvert that expectation. The idea that it doesn't have to be this glamorous thing. The reality of being a boxer is, you're a working person and your job is to go and punch someone and try not to get punched yourself, which is brutalistic and interesting and strange. And if you're not one of the big boxing stars making a ton of money, you're really just kind of a working person in this sort of brutalistic trapping of a sport that you probably are doing out of necessity. Willie Pep fought 241 fights. He grew up in the streets. He had to do this. He had to fight to survive. And so there's an ethos that goes with that once you're not in the ring anymore, once the spotlight has receded a bit, what are you left with? And what kind of person are you? How do you go about your daily life? So it was those details and that kind of perspective that I think we found really fascinating.
And
I'll piggyback off that a little bit, in respects to our approach and how we shot that. For us as actors, it was challenging at times, but we've said this before, very freeing, because you could spike the lens. There was this freedom to improvise. If it worked, it didn't. I mean, we'd have these exercises where you had no idea if Robert was running the camera or he wasn't. So we had to always be on, who we are and who our characters are. But, I had many questions for him on set, saying, would I allow this camera here? Why are they here? How are you going to shoot this? Do I see you there? And that would change my idea or my approach and the character and, all my emotions, knowing if they were there. Do I play to them? When do I play with them? And how do I play to them? Because, they are their own character. And me as an actor, that affects me. And then the character, Willie, how it affects them. So there was this sort of, domino effect of each scene and how it played. When he was seeing me, it was always something I want to know. Are you seeing me? Do I see you? And so it was fun. It was very new and refreshing for me doing this for 30-something years, to having that freedom, but that worrisome about how we were going to do it. But it worked great. I mean, that's why we're here today. And then I trusted him all the way through, and obviously he delivered.
And there's almost a bit of a meta aspect to it, because it's kind of, I guess, because of this fluidity, you're kind of constantly in character. But then I know there's a moment where Ruby was sort of ad-libbing a bit about, about not being able to cook, and how she, I didn't have to go and stay with my mother-in-law to learn how to do it, and that was kind of something from her own past. Or even the opening sequence, right? I think was actually just you on set. So does that also play with the idea of kind of is documentary even observational? And kind of how it's all a performance really, even if you think it's a true life documentary or fiction.
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing question. I spend most of my time thinking about exactly that question. But, for example, we're sitting here, there's a camera in front of us, so we're sitting in a certain way, we're speaking in a certain way, that maybe if there wasn't a camera, we would be sitting differently and speaking differently. But there's a performative aspect anytime a camera is put upon anyone. So there's that layer of performance. And then by utilizing this idea of having a documentary crew follow these characters, it opens us up to having one, the filmmaker's perspective, which is not objective at all. It's completely subjective, because a filmmaker is not a journalist. A filmmaker is a person that is artistically trying to tell a story, and that story might not be morally in line with what the participant in the film thinks it's about. So there's that subjectivity. There's also the characters in the film performing for the camera, and simultaneously, when they're not aware that the camera's there, that's a different performance performance that the actor is giving. So everyone's really playing these kind of dual roles in a way. Their on-camera self and their off-camera self. And to sort of achieve that realism, it was important for us to dress the sets 360 degrees. Our production designer, Sonia Fotarsh, would make every room a fully functioning room. Every drawer had jewelry in it. Every suit pocket had like a little scrap of paper that said, make sure to pick up the lasagna. And I gave a lot of the actors little trinkets and things to carry around that we wouldn't see on camera, but just so they had. Ron Livingston, who plays Bob Kaplan, I bought a 1960s address book for him, and I spent days just like making up characters and like filling them in this address book with details about their life, allergic to almonds, or like a lipstick kiss, and like call Cheryl, things like that. And then also, the cinematographer is my brother, and I had him and our gaffer, David Williamson, try to light 360 as well. So we would put lights outside. Rooms are fully dressed to be 1960s, and then the actors just have the opportunity to be themselves in character and function in character. We did a lot of exercises of improv. I would sit down and do interviews with actors, and it would feel like, at times like an exercise to get into character, but also a lot of those moments made it into the film. And our editor, Robert Green, is a documentary editor, probably the best living documentary editor. And so we really edited the film like a documentary, restructured things, used things that wouldn't be expected. Yeah, you bring up a great point. The opening scene of the film, we were just rolling, waiting for the slate to come in, and Jimmy was, I don't know what was going through your mind at that moment, if you were like thinking about your lines, if you were looking at like the grips, like moving C-stands. But we found that footage in post, and we put it in, and it's so real because it looks like Willie Pep is waiting to get up, thinking about what he's going to say, and as soon as in the frame you see the Fresnel lamp like pan onto him, and his demeanor immediately changes, and so every frame we really tried to imbue with the real.
And, the thing that really comes across as well is just how immaculately it recreates the era. So the sets, the costumes, everything, but also taking on, this man, this character, even if you had a bit of a head start, in terms of the resemblance, it must have also been quite the transformation. So where did you begin with that? Was that research? Were you watching a lot of footage, or and was it very grueling too?
Right. I mean, at first, obviously, research. You want to research the man. A lot of footage. His footwork was very special and unique, so you wanted to work on his footwork inside the ring. But there's a lot of variables that came into it. I knew the exteriors were very similar, right? So now I got to work on the interiors and who he is as a man, what he's been through. So, you have a process. Yeah, you try and contact the family. You want to know more about him. And his family was very helpful, thankfully, at times. Friends, we filmed in Hartford, Connecticut. We filmed where he was. We actually shot on the block that he lived on. I would jog the same path every morning that he jogged. I went to some of the gyms that he went to. I ate at some of the places that he ate. I heard stories from everybody. I mean, I just really, really dove into Willie, and I did my best to walk around that town as Willie, because I felt like I had their local hero on my back, and I had to represent that in the greatest light possible. And I wanted to do that. I was honored to do that. The training for me wasn't as difficult because I was always in decent shape, but it was more of how he fought and his style that was very, very challenging, because if I was able to move and fight like Willie, or got even a fraction of how Willie fought in his style, I probably would have just took up boxing at 40 years old and made a living dodging people, because that's kind of what he did. He made a living dodging people and not getting hit versus getting hit. One of our things that we talk about a lot is obviously he's a smaller fighter, and why has he gone sort of somewhat unnoticed, having all these records and accolades? Why did he go mostly unnoticed? Well, he's a smaller fighter. He's a featherweight. They go to the people. Willie even says this. People go to the fights to see blood. I didn't give him enough. I wasn't a puncher, a heavyweight that knocked people down. That's what they were going for. I would take a fight of 15 rounds, he would say, so he lived. and he could get another fight, and he can go home to his family and feed his family, put food on the table. I didn't knock him out the first, second round, unless they were jerks. He did say that, unless they deserved it, I'd knock him out. But otherwise, I'd take him to 15 rounds, because he knew it was valuable for his opponent to kind of say, I went 15 rounds with Willie Pep, that guy will get another fight. He went 1 round, Willie Pep, not getting another fight. So he was that type of guy, and you know, so all of that, you know, you put in a pot and you still, but it's a lot of information. But I think to some degree I was prepared because I had some time, but yeah, that's my process.
And in terms of working on that interiority, I mean, how did you see him as a character? Because of course, you know, he is flawed, and you know, some of the decisions he makes, some of the ways he behaves, you know, you might not be fully on board with, but there's a lot of sympathy there. For, like you say, like how could he have, you know, been able to win all these fights and not have that moment of glory and be sort of like forgotten? And perhaps everybody can also relate to that moment in life when you think, oh, is this it? You know, has my moment come and gone?
Right. I mean, a tremendous winner inside the ring, and obviously a lot of loss outside the ring, with relationships, finances, his career, his relationship with his son, his daughter, marriages, all of that. I mean, it wasn't really made the best decisions outside the ring, and out in the ring is where he was most comfortable. You know, Willie, I think there's a lot that I had in common with Willie, with my career, and being in front of a camera and doing all this and being this person and kind of go, I'm an actor now. I mean, this is fun for me to do. I mean, I love doing this. But now I got to go home to my wife, my 3 kids. You know, I got to do laundry, make dinner. I got to go back to a world where now I have to, you know, work again. And so I think for Willie, he really, really enjoyed this spotlight. And that's what he enjoyed most. And I think he had a dual sort of personality. So when the documentary crew comes, you see him, and he's like, this is great. This is an opportunity to tell about myself. Spotlight's on me again. But he doesn't have a dime. He doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together. He's living at his parents' house. He's got a wife, you know, 30 years younger than him, or 20-something years younger than him. His son's on drugs. He doesn't even see his daughter, and his father's dying that he won't even go visit. So that's the reality which really happened behind closed doors. And his camera crew went. So I feel like a lot of people can have that similarity in their life, no matter what it is, who they are in the persona of the public versus what they are behind closed doors and how they are. So you know that's difficult in some way, but I do believe, and I've said this on another interview as well. I'm trying not to sound like a broken record. You know, I do believe at the end of this film, Willie got what he wanted. He wanted to go fight again. Everything went away, his wife, his son, his father, everything went away. And Willie got to go back inside the ring. I feel he found happiness through all that sadness, as he was happy about all that. It's what he ultimately wanted, and he got it his way. And that's what that big smile, I think, is at the end.
And ultimately, what do you hope people take away from watching the film? 'Cause like we say, you know, having a look at all those themes, discussing, you know, about, you know, unsung heroes, the idea of this sport as being a working class sport, and, you know, actually kind of being a brutal reality, but then also the aspects of storytelling and fiction versus documentary making. So what do you think some of the takeaways are?
I mean, I hope that people see the film and are able to, you know, learn about Willie Pep, who we're trying to be respectful and honor him and highlight him, although he is a complex character, and we do show him warts and all, but I hope that people see an accurate portrayal of a complex American figure of the 20th century. I hope that they are excited by the form, because every time I watch it, I'm very excited by the form, and I think you know, I hope that people are able to just watch it and let the performances wash over them, allow the cinematography and the sound design to weave this tapestry that is cinema.
And what about being here at the Venice Film Festival? I was eavesdropping on you earlier, saying, you know, like, I mean, getting in front of an audience, sort of, is it the first time? Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
I mean, and seeing people's reactions. I mean, what does that feel like to you? What does it mean to you?
It's absolutely incredible. I mean, this is my first film. This is the first time I've ever, you know, been in this position, and to do it here in Venice, which is, you know, the most beautiful film festival in the most beautiful place, and to be here with the people that I made the film with, has meant the world to me. You know, I'm simply over the moon, and these have been the happiest days of my life.
And for you?
Well said, buddy. Likewise, likewise. I mean, we couldn't expect a better outcome or had wished for a better outcome after all the hard work that we've all done. Everybody, our entire cast and crew, what we endured, and how tenacious we were in telling Willie's story, and the love and respect that we got in Hartford, Connecticut, and just honored and thrilled and extremely thankful that we get to premiere here and for his directorial debut here as well. I mean, it's amazing. Dream come true. Truly is.
Do you have a favorite moment, or when you had the audience watching it, were you surprised at any reactions at any moment?
I mean,
That's a good question.
Nobody's seen the film except for like the editor and I, who have watched it hundreds of times. So I've felt kind of like I've been in a vacuum, and so to like walk into a room, and I was hoping that people would show up for it, but we walked in and it seemed like every seat was full, and people were excited, and the film ended. Those last moments of the film, Lou Reed's Heroine is playing, and I'm sitting there like, oh man, I don't know if people are into this or not. And then, the credits came up and people started clapping, and somehow there was a standing ovation, which is nothing I would expect in my wildest dreams. So it was just crazy. My heart is full.
Well, it's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all that with me, and really
you.
enjoyed presenting the film here. Enjoy the rest of your time here. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.